Good morning, people. So I was recording something else and then it stopped, and I decided to start a new one and see if this improv is going to go better. So I was talking a little bit about time and how the perception of it has shifted tremendously, at least in my life, and how I'm not so concerned about outcomes or concerned about achievements or concerned about like deadlines being met, although I have a lot of deadlines in the last few months. And maybe what happens is like I convince myself that these are not important, so then I don't stress, but then within that conviction I do stuff like in my habits of how I sleep, I eat, I meditate, and I work. I make it happen in a way that it is flowing, it is playful, and all the deadlines are met, but are not met with like fear or dread. Because I even, the word deadline is a little bit like, deadline. It's a line that kills you, right? So this is interesting because I also have changed a little bit the idea of like, okay, I have to write this week, but I usually write every day, but it's been sort of like 3 months since probably end of February that I don't feel like writing. So I don't force anything in my life, and if I don't feel it, I don't do it. So I've been doing these voice messages, and it's okay with me. Eventually they'll shift into something else, but I'm not too concerned about defining them, because at the same time I'm also what I'm doing is communicating, and that's what my main concern all the times when I write on the Substack or I create. It's just there's a need for me to share what I'm doing creatively with others. And so because I want everything that I put out there to be meaningful and to be of value, not only to myself but to others, when I don't have anything to share that is valuable, at least I think it is valuable, then I just don't. But I do like to have consistency, and because that's what makes me, this is part of my design, is that I'm quite consistent. My energy is consistent in many ways. So because if I am not consistent, then it stops breathing, and then it stops being, and that's the end of the story. So but for now, okay, so just want to make sure that I know what I'm saying, something meaningful at this point. So it is Sunday morning, and it's been raining like crazy for the last week in Miami. There were some floods. And that was okay for me because I had another deadline about another project that I am starting to produce, and so I'm excited about that. And then I'll commit to my book in the next month, so then we will have this physical thing shipping finally, because I haven't been able to focus on that 100%. So that's one of the updates. And on a more deeper level, what I feel that is happening is that the timelines have shifted tremendously, and the way I relate to time and outcome, it's completely different. And one of the things that I've been working on, it's quite interesting. I'm not exactly know like the final shape of this, but at least I'm doing it. So I've been focusing internally and inquiring about all my triggers, and especially certain triggers that are very judgmental towards others. So for instance, let's say that for years I was judging people who were showing their vulnerability with the energy of victimhood. You can be vulnerable, but in my eyes, if you're like crying a lot and whining about it and telling a story that is where you're the victim, that doesn't do anything to me. I actually feel like I want to kick your ass. But I have softly and gently in the last years been understanding that maybe it's because I'm not kind to myself, and I don't want to put myself in that situation where I have to ask for help, and I don't want to be vulnerable, blah, blah, blah. So I've been working on that. And so I've noticed that lately, when somebody has that energy, instead of being so judgmental, I put myself in a situation where I say, okay, if there's anything that I can do to support this person, even with a phone call, with a note, with an emoji, or just a kind word, where I don't have to feel like I'm going to be dragged into it. Because my fear there is not that they're feeling bad. It's like, am I going to create a relationship of codependency? So it's at the very end, it's all about me. I'm just a selfish little shit. Guilty, don't care. That's the truth. And so I've noticed that I have shifted there, and it's like, oh, there's so much gentleness that is happening when I put myself in a situation that I know and I'm aware that it is uncomfortable, but at the same time the results are amazing because I'm not expecting anything in return. But what I'm feeling and I'm experiencing when I open up like that is that I am allowing that vulnerable part of myself to be part of my life, and it's been fantastic. So to give some context, my Chiron, which is my vulnerable point in the chart, is in Pisces at 17 degrees. That's where Saturn is right now. Saturn has been going around that point for the last weeks, and it's going to station retrograde at 19 degrees. It's going to go back. So I have a great opportunity right now to really establish a new way, a new structure of how I define what being vulnerable is. Especially in myself, it has a lot to do with self-worth, because it's in the second house. So how people relate to how they see themselves as worthy or unworthy. And that includes not just the self-image, but also self-esteem, how they value themselves, how they put themselves out there in society. And so it could include things about being taken advantage of or taking advantage of others, etc. So it is interesting because I feel right now that I know my value. I really have spent the last 4 years or so concentrated on understanding what my value is. So I've done all kinds of learnings, studies, and I'm still studying on that. And it's been the most valuable thing for me is to delve into what value is. And this is really my life purpose in a way, is to become very self-sufficient that way, but in a way that is not just for me and selfish, but it is something that the world is going to benefit, because I am always ready to share, whether it's a story or in a study group or in a book or in a creation or in a conversation. There's always this idea of sharing with others. So that's one of the things. Now I'm noticing right now, and this is a confession, I always make these confessions because I'm already working on that, but it's been interesting. Noticing that I am very focused on two things right now. And it will be the difference between validation and recognition. So validating is like it's like an equation. You need an equation to be validated, so it is logical, it makes sense, right? So something that has to make sense. I make something, I create something, I want to show it up to the world, and I want to be validated by the world and approving that this thing that I do is actually logical, worth, or just not even logical, but it's worth it. It has some sense of value in it. And I'm going to be giving some spotlight. It's a very Leo, 5th house, sun archetype. I'm enjoying my coffee. So that's that. And then the other one that is a little bit different, it's more 10th house, Capricorn, Saturn, recognition. But recognition is something that comes from the outside. It is society who says, oh, we value this so much, we're going to give this person or the situation an upgrade. We're going to say, hey, this is worth it. You should look at this. You should put her work in this place. We should buy this. We should determine that this is of value. So this is interesting because it requires an outside and mostly an institution. So you get invited to a museum show, or you get invited to speak on a very big panel, or you get giving a prize. This kind of stuff, this is recognition. By the way, I just got a grant, so I am very happy I got recognized for my work, and so I can put that money into more creative outlets, more books, I think they're coming. So that's those two things are kind of my Achilles point. And why would I say that? Okay, so value I already said because of Chiron. Now, validation is where my North Node is and my Venus is there. So the sense of value, I value my creativity a lot. But my Venus is in a square position with my Chiron. So this is a vulnerable thing. It's like validating myself has always made me feel very vulnerable. I don't know why. Since I was little, like, am I doing this correctly? No. Okay. Why am I being punished again? Why am I being punished for speaking up? Why am I being punished for being courageous? And it was always a punishment. And so for many years, I decided not to be validating my creativity because I was afraid of being punished. But then with time, I understood that it was not what I was doing, it was how I was doing it. So I have really spent a lot of time learning techniques, technologies, and being very skillful about how to express what I think is important. And that's really where I think the cleverness comes. I don't know if I have achieved that completely, but I find myself that I'm better off now than what I was 10 years ago, for instance. So that's the thing. So let's put it this way. I am very focused right now on understanding why I'm so judgmental regarding people, situations, or things that are always wanting or looking for that recognition or that validation, and why I'm so judgmental. So guess what? It's not a very difficult equation. It's because I do not give myself that space. And what does that mean? Am I going to become this like incredible annoying person who's going to go me? No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is more like I'm becoming aware of it and saying maybe I am not allowing more light to come in because I'm too judgmental about that. How are gonna people see me, or am I going to be too much? Because sometimes some people annoy me because of that. But so this is interesting because there's new space that I created, and it's kind of like, let's go exploring about it. And guess what? Jupiter is there. Jupiter is just about to enter my 5th house, and so this year is all about not showing off, but actually showing up and saying, hey, I'm going to give myself a different kind of way how to be connected to my creativity. 12 years ago, something similar happened in a different way, but it did. It's just like it gave me the confidence to know that what I was doing with my artwork was something that it was very connected to me and not what people wanted from me, which was like a very big divorce that I did with society at the time. So I know that I'm at another level because things go in spirals. So I'm just there, but in a different level. So that's great. And that relates also to my 10th house, where my Neptune is. 10th house is kind of like I want to dissolve the way society thinks about recognition in the very old-fashioned way that, let's say, institutions have arrived to a place of corruption because it's no longer about being recognized. It's like you belong to certain groups because you're going to get all the goodies, but you're not giving back. So at the very end, there's nothing wrong with being recognized, but am I asking this question to myself? Is the recognition that I'm given something that it is improving society, or is it something very egotistical that is just going to pump my name and my bags, but that's it? So it's a sense of purpose that's for me that I want to put it. So I don't know if I'm making any sense at all, but it makes sense to me at least. So I'm going to leave it there. So that's what I'm working on, and it's quite interesting. And it works together in my chart, and also in harmonics. One has to know that when things are flowing, they're making an angle that is positive. It will be like 60 degrees in a circle, or it will be 120 degrees. So things are flowing. They're coming from different elements, but they're flowing. But then when you have angles like 45 degrees or 90 degrees, they're angles of tension where something snaps and moves you out of a routine. And those are the places where actually one can evolve. And those are the things that I'm always looking for. I'm looking for the tension. I'm looking for the breakthrough. I'm looking for the uncomfortable things. I'm looking for the triggers. So I'm gonna leave it at there. Wow, 14 minutes. Anyway, so that's my take today. I'm in a good mood. Gemini time is nice. What else? The solstice is coming. That's beautiful. I like Cancer a lot. That's where my North Node is. I'm starting to become more comfortable with my heart being open and expressing connection to people. And so, oh yeah, I know what I was going to say, and I was saying this in the other recording that I don't know what happened to that. It's like I'm really willing to make an effort about my own habits and behavior, because I have in my chart, in my solar return chart, Pluto is on my 6th house. So there's going to be a transformation this year of how I relate to my routines, and I'm really eager to change them a little bit. I've been busy, so I haven't been able to be concentrated on that, but now that I'm going to be have a little bit more of time, I'm just going to see how I'm going to focus in more healthy relationship to the way I relate to the world, my body, and my environment. And last but not least, I'm starting to get really intrigued by new ways of thinking. So I've been doing a lot of research on different stuff, and so I'm thinking already about another book that I want to write, or another series of creative synthesis that I'm willing to create there for the world. Anyway, wish you all a beautiful week, and I hope that, and if you have arrived to the end of this note, thank you so much for listening to my rant. I just feel like being spontaneous at this moment. Thank you. Bye-bye.